This time, what Warner Brothers is saying, in addition to the fact that the offer is actually inadequate, this is what they said the very first time when they rejected this $30 bid from Paramount. They obviously wanted the personal guarantee from Larry Ellison, which they got. They wanted, Paramount to raise its termination fee to $5.8 billion to match Netflix. That also they got. But now they're saying that they actually really do need, a sweetened bid. So they cite a number there. They say that if they had to terminate their agreement with Netflix, they will also incur, obviously they have to pay the termination fee, plus there's going to be significant financing costs. So all of that comes out to about $1.80, close to 179 or 180 a share. So they obviously need to be compensated for that. So basically, I think, they do need a sweetened offer. And the big thing that they highlight this time around is the amount of debt. So they actually call this a leveraged buyout, probably the biggest one in the history of M&A. And so say that, it just presents too many risks and too many uncertainties and is definitely inferior to the Netflix offer.
Right. The conclusion that it has drawn and what it's recommending to shareholders remains the same, which is go with Netflix's the Netflix bid. Having said that, what does it mean that Warner Brothers Discovery wrote this letter to shareholders? Do we get the sense that shareholders are tendering shares to Paramount?
Not so from what we've heard, when it was last reported, Scarlett, about 500,000 shares were tendered at that $30 price. Remember, we have about 2.6 billion. So we're really very, very a long ways off. So, I think shareholders definitely expect the price to go up. They do, think that there is going to be a bidding war. The number out there on the street is that David Zaslav is looking for $34 as, the final offer at which he will sign his company away to Paramount. I'm not sure whether, Paramount is actually going to raise their offer, but that is really the number that he's looking for. And we know him. He's really a master craftsman when it comes to getting the best deal for his company. So again, it's a wait and watch.
We used to call that the final offer. This is our final. We're not getting around anymore.
So final that we need to say it twice.
Exactly. Geeta, we have not heard really too much from Netflix, have we?
So all that Netflix said today, Paul, was after, Warner Brothers Discovery put out that letter was, they said, yes, we continue to, work with Warner Brothers. We're working with the antitrust authorities. We're working with the regulators, and we hope to get, the deal done. So everything kind of proceeding as expected from the Netflix management team.
You mentioned $34 a share is what David Zaslav is really eyeing. Is there any reason to think Netflix will raise its offer?
Netflix needs to raise its offer, Scarlett, only if Paramount comes back with a sweetened bid. And we do think that they actually will raise their offer. They really believe, even though the market price reaction obviously has been very negative to this whole Netflix deal, just kind of given that it really kind of complicates a very clean narrative. I think Netflix really believes that they're doing this, in the long, they're playing the long game here. This is a great collection of assets. Again, it's not just the cost of doing the deal, it's the cost of not doing the deal. And they obviously do not want to strengthen their competitors. They believe this is a great collection of assets that gives them, tremendous value over many, many years to come. So I absolutely think they will raise the price, but the first move has to be from Paramount.
Geeta, part of the Warner Brothers Discovery plan before this offer was to spin out their cable networks. And that's exactly what Comcast did several days ago, spinning out its cable networks. The new company is called Versant Media, VSNT. That thing is traded off about 25% just in the last few days. Man, what does that tell you about the cable network business and maybe how it might affect these bids?
Yeah, it's really bleak. And so this actually strengthens the case for Paramount. This is exactly what they were saying. They were saying, let's buy this whole thing because you don't know where this, the global networks business, the TV networks is going to actually trade. And here we go. Versant is actually just proving their point. So does not really bode well for Warner Brothers. But again, I think still Warner Brothers will continue to have the upper hand because, again, they can argue that their cable networks, again, a slightly different business, much larger in scale compared to the Versant Properties, has an international footprint. But again, the writing is on the wall, Paul, as you've said many times. I mean, the TV network business is bleeding, not a slow death anymore. This is really happening fast and furious.